Something in you has been working so hard, and the universe noticed. Not the kind of work people applaud, not the kind you can put on a resume, but the inner labor, the quiet effort of holding it together, the mental rehearsing, the endless calculating, the way you try to stay ahead of disappointment so it cannot surprise you. And you may not have called it anything dramatic. You may have called it being responsible. But responsibility, when it is soaked in fear, becomes strain. You may have called it trying. But trying, when it comes from the belief that life will not meet you, becomes pushing. And pushing is exhausting because it is the body's way of saying, I do not feel supported. You see, the universe doesn't only hear your spoken words. It hears the unspoken message in your shoulders. It hears the way your stomach tightens when you think of money. It hears the small panic that rises when you imagine a bill, a delay, a surprise expense. It hears the part of you that whispers late at night, what if this never gets easier? And the universe, in its quiet intelligence, sends messages, not through noise, through stillness, through the moment you almost gave up but didn't, through the door that closed, not to punish you, but to redirect you away from something that would have cost you your peace, through the timing that confused you and later made perfect sense. This is your message, and it is personal. Because what you are learning right now is not only about abundance, it is about receiving. It is about allowing. It is about the inner place where you decide whether life is a friend or a fight. You may have been taught, directly or indirectly, that abundance must be chased, that support must be earned, that money must be wrestled from life with effort and worry, that if you relax, you will lose, that if you trust, you will be disappointed, and if you've lived with those thoughts long enough, you stop noticing them. They become the air you breathe. You become skilled at surviving. You become talented at making do. You become a master at stretching, at waiting, at holding your breath until the next solution appears. And yet somewhere inside you, you want more than survival. Not more things necessarily, more ease, more room, more breath, more permission to let life be kind to you. I want you to hear this gently and clearly. Abundance does not respond well to pressure because pressure is a form of fear. Pressure says, there isn't enough. Pressure says, I am alone with this. Pressure says, if I do not force it, it will not happen. And fear is like a closed fist. A closed fist cannot receive. It can only grip. And gripping is not receiving. Gripping is guarding. Gripping is bracing. Gripping is the body preparing for loss. So even when something good is near you, even when an opportunity is approaching, even when support is trying to find you, the closed fist does not feel it. It does not trust it. It misses it, or it accepts it with tension, and then worries it will disappear. This is not because you are doing something wrong. It is because you learned a pattern, and patterns can be changed when we bring them into the light with compassion. When you were small, you learned rules about what you had to do to be supported. Maybe you watched adults struggle. Maybe you heard conversations about money that sounded like storms. Maybe you saw stress in the eyes of people you loved, and your nervous system decided support is uncertain. Or maybe you were praised most when you performed, when you achieved, when you were helpful, when you were easy. And without anyone meaning harm, you learned a quiet equation. If I do enough, I will be safe. If I prove myself, I will be taken care of. If I work harder, I will not be abandoned. And that equation can follow you into adulthood, even when you are capable, even when you are strong, even when you are doing well, because the old inner contract remains, an invisible agreement you never signed consciously, but you live by. A support contract. It might sound like this: I can receive only after I have suffered. I can rest only after I have earned it. I can have ease only when everything is perfect. I can be supported only if I never need too much. And when you live under that contract, you will reject help without realizing it. You will minimize what you want. You will feel guilty when things go smoothly. You will mistrust simple blessings. You will find yourself creating emergencies because calm feels unfamiliar. You may even judge yourself for wanting abundance, as if wanting is dangerous. This is tender territory. So let's be kind to you, because none of this means you are broken. It means you adapted. You learned how to live in the world you were given. Now, the universe is offering you a new way. Not by demanding you become someone else, but by inviting you to soften the inner gate. There is an inner gate within you. It is quiet. It is subtle. It is not in the mind alone. It lives in the body. This gate decides what you allow in. It decides whether you feel safe enough to receive a compliment, safe enough to receive money, safe enough to receive love, safe enough to receive rest. When the gate is tight, you may still receive, but it feels stressful. You may receive, but you immediately start planning for it to end. You may receive, but you don't let yourself enjoy it. You keep one foot braced for impact, and when the gate is open, receiving feels simple, not careless, not naive. Simple, because the nervous system is not shouting, because the body is not bracing, because the mind is not scanning for danger. So if abundance has felt difficult for you, we don't begin by forcing abundance. We begin by easing the gate. We begin by teaching your inner world that it is safe to receive. You might be wondering, how do I do that? And the answer is not to pretend. It is not to cover fear with a bright smile. It is not to pressure yourself into believing something you don't feel. We work gently. We work honestly. We work with patience. because you have lived with these patterns for a long time. And life is not asking you to fix it in one day. It is asking you to begin. Let's talk about the kind of receiving that doesn't feel like begging and doesn't feel like stealing. Many people secretly carry shame around receiving. If they receive support, they feel weak. If they receive money, they feel undeserving. If they receive help, they feel like a burden. So they reject the gift, or they accept it with apology, or they return it immediately. They cannot let it land. But receiving is not taking from someone. Receiving is allowing what is meant for you to reach you. Receiving is a form of partnership with life, and the universe is built on partnership. Look at nature. The tree does not apologize for drawing water from the earth. The soil does not say, "I should do more to deserve the rain." The flower does not feel guilty for opening when the sun arrives. They participate, they allow, they accept. And in accepting, they become more of what they are. You are part of that same intelligence. You belong to the same life. So when you deny yourself support, you are not being humble. You are interrupting a natural flow. You are telling life, "I do not trust you, and I understand why you might not trust." If you have been disappointed, if you have been let down, if you have watched things disappear, if you have worked and still felt behind, I understand. So we do not force trust. We invite it, one honest step at a time. And we begin with what is closest, your thoughts. Because thoughts are like instructions you give to the body. When you think, "I can't," your chest tightens. When you think, "There's not enough," your jaw clenches. When you think, "I have to do everything alone," your shoulders lift as if carrying a heavy bag. Your body listens. Your body believes you. So if we want to open the inner gate, we speak differently to the body. Not in a frantic way, in a calm way. Like someone who is safe. Like someone who knows support exists. And this is where one sentence can begin to change your life. Not because it is magic, because repetition reshapes the inner world, because a consistent message becomes a new pattern, because your nervous system learns through familiarity. Now I want to offer you one sentence, simple enough to remember, strong enough to reshape your inner world. And I want you to notice something before I say it. Notice your hands. Are they tight? Notice your tongue. Is it pressing against your teeth? Notice your forehead. Is it working? Just notice. No judgment. This is information. This is the body telling the truth about how it has been living. Now, let your shoulders drop just a little. Let your breath come down into your belly. Not forced, just invited. And here is the affirmation. Say it quietly inside, or let your lips move if you like. You do not need to shout it. You do not need to convince anyone. This is between you and life. Here it is. I welcome support in forms I can recognize, receive, and respect. That is the sentence, and we will not repeat it again, because one true sentence held with devotion is enough to begin. Now let's talk about what this means, so it becomes real for you. I welcome support. Support does not only mean money. Support can be an idea that arrives at the right time. Support can be someone offering help without you asking. Support can be a conversation that changes your direction. Support can be a discount, a refund, an opportunity, a referral, an unexpected yes. Support can be energy returning to your body after months of fatigue. Support can be a simple moment of clarity that saves you from a costly mistake. Support is life cooperating with you, and you are welcoming it, not chasing it, not begging. Welcoming. That word matters. Welcoming means the door is open. Welcoming means you are not braced for disappointment. Welcoming means you have decided you are allowed, in forms I can recognize. This is important because sometimes support is present, but the mind dismisses it. You might receive an invitation and say, "It's probably nothing." You might receive a compliment and say, "They're just being nice." You might receive a small opportunity and say, "It won't lead anywhere." You might receive a moment of rest and say, "I don't have time." Recognition is a skill. When you practice recognizing support, you begin to see it, and what you see grows. Not because the universe is a vending machine, because your attention becomes an open channel. Receive. This is the most tender part. Receiving means letting it land. Letting the gift be a gift. Letting help be help. Letting money be money without turning it into guilt. Letting ease be ease without punishing yourself for it. Some people can recognize support, but they cannot receive it. It bounces off them. It slips through their fingers. They sabotage it. They overgive to compensate. They spend it immediately out of anxiety. They reject it because it feels unfamiliar. Receiving means staying present long enough to let goodness reach your nervous system. It means allowing our body to learn this can happen, and respect. Respect means you receive without losing yourself. You receive without abandoning your values. You receive without shrinking into dependency. You receive with dignity. You receive with discernment. You receive what is aligned, and you let go of what is not. This is not about accepting anything from anyone. This is about welcoming true support. Support that strengthens you. Support that expands you. Support that leaves you with more integrity, not less. Now, the mind might say, "Yes, but I still have bills." Yes, and your reality matters. Spiritual truth does not ignore practical life. So we bring this into your daily moments, because abundance is not a concept. It is lived. Here is what you might begin to do. When you open your phone and see a notification, and the old fear rises, you pause. Not to deny the fear, to breathe, to soften, to remind your body, we are here. When you think of money and you feel tight, you notice the tightness as a signal, not a prophecy. Tightness is not truth. Tightness is an old habit of protection. When you are offered help, you practice saying yes without apology, not a dramatic yes, a simple yes. When you receive money, you let yourself feel gratitude without making it a performance. When something goes smoothly, you resist the urge to say, "It's too good to be true." You let it be true. When you feel the impulse to push, to force, to overwork, you ask gently, "Am I acting from trust or from fear?" And if it is fear, you do not shame yourself. You simply choose again, because choice is power, and power is calm. The universe speaks to you through patterns. So let's look at a pattern you might recognize. You work hard, you create something, you get close to a breakthrough. Then something happens. A delay, a mistake, a setback, and you interpret it as failure. But what if some of those moments were not punishment? What if they were refinement? What if they were protecting you from the version of success that would cost you your health? What if they were steering you toward the kind of abundance that doesn't require you to disappear inside your own life? You may not have seen it then, but you can see it now because you're ready to live differently. And readiness doesn't always feel like confidence. Sometimes readiness feels like quiet exhaustion that finally tells the truth. I don't want to live in struggle anymore. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. Now the mind will try to bargain. It will say, "If I just get this one thing, then I'll relax." And then you get the thing, and you don't relax, because the contract remains. So we do the deeper work. We retire the old support contract, the one that says struggle equals worth, the one that says rest must be earned through suffering, the one that says receiving is risky. You might not retire it in one dramatic moment. You retire it through many small, steady moments of choosing ease. You retire it by speaking to yourself kindly when you make a mistake. You retire it by allowing yourself to receive praise without deflecting. You retire it by trusting one small yes and watching life respond. Because life does respond. Not always instantly, not always in the exact form the mind expects, but over time, life responds to your inner relationship with it. And if your inner relationship has been guarded, life will feel guarded. If your inner relationship becomes open and respectful, life begins to feel more cooperative. There is something else about abundance that many people misunderstand. Abundance is not always loud. Sometimes it enters quietly. It arrives as a gentle improvement, a little more stability, a little more clarity, a little more energy, a little less panic. a little more room to breathe. And then one day you realize you are not living in the same internal world you used to live in. Your mind is quieter. Your body is less tense. Your choices are wiser. Your timing is better. And opportunities that once felt far away feel reachable. This is the subtle miracle of inner change, and it is not fragile. It is built. Now, you may have a part of you that says, "But I've tried affirmations before." I understand. Sometimes people use affirmations like bandages, trying to cover a wound that needs tenderness. They say bright sentences while their body still believes danger. So the affirmation feels like a lie. We do not do that here. We use one sentence as a doorway, and we walk through it with honesty. If you notice resistance, you don't force yourself. You simply acknowledge. Of course I feel resistant. I have lived with scarcity thinking for a long time. That alone is compassion, and compassion opens the gate. You might also notice grief, because when you begin to welcome support, you may realize how long you lived without it, how long you carried things alone, how long you believed you had to be strong all the time. If grief comes, let it come. Grief is not a setback, it is a release. It is the old story leaving your body. And as it leaves, there is room for a new story. A story where you can be both capable and supported, where you can be both ambitious and peaceful, where you can build without burning. Now, let's bring this into a few real-life moments so it feels close to you. Imagine you are at the grocery store. You look at prices. You feel a tightening. Instead of letting the tightening drive your choices from fear, you pause. You choose with wisdom. You choose what is nourishing. And you remind yourself, without drama, that support can show up in many ways. You may notice a creative idea for saving. You may remember something you already have at home. You may feel calmer and therefore make better decisions. That is support. Imagine you are at work or building your own path. An opportunity appears, and the old thought says, "I'm not ready." You pause. You ask yourself, "Is this my truth? Or an old pattern trying to keep me small?" And you might take one step. Not the whole leap, just one step. Sometimes abundance arrives through courage, but it is a quiet courage, not forcing, participating. Imagine you are resting, and a voice in you says, "You're bae, nang lazy." You notice the voice, and you answer with kindness. Because rest is not a reward. Rest is maintenance. Rest is how your mind becomes clear enough to recognize support. Rest is how your body becomes calm enough to receive it. Your peace is not separate from your prosperity. They are related. Because when you are in constant strain, you make decisions from panic. And panic is expensive. It costs you sleep. It costs you creativity. It costs you timing. It costs you perspective. So ease is not a luxury. Ease is intelligence. Now let's talk about something very important. Sometimes people fear that if they stop struggling, they will stop moving. That if they relax, nothing will happen. But relaxing does not mean quitting. Relaxing means you stop fighting life. It means you stop punishing yourself with urgency. It means you stop treating every moment like an emergency. You can still take action. But it becomes cleaner. It becomes more effective. It becomes less desperate. And desperation is what keeps you stuck. Because desperation says, I don't trust life. And trust is what allows you to see options. Trust is what allows you to take the next step with a clear mind. Trust is what opens the inner gate. The universe often sends support in ways that require you to notice. It might send you a conversation that seems ordinary, but plants a seed. It might send you a delay that saves you from an impulsive decision. It might send you an ending that makes room for something better suited to you. It might send you an unexpected calm in the middle of a problem, so you can solve it from clarity instead of fear. And you may not always understand in the moment. That's okay. Understanding is not required for support to exist. You are allowed to be confused and still be cared for. You are allowed to not have it figured out and still be guided. You are allowed to be in process and still be met. Now I want to gently bring you back to the present moment, because the point of power is always in the present moment, not in the past where you learned scarcity, not in the future where your mind tries to predict. Here, now, this breath, this second, this is where you change the contract. In small ways, in quiet ways, in ways that your nervous system can actually accept. So if you want to practice with this message in your day, here are a few simple invitations you can use, just as reminders, not commands. When you feel yourself pushing, soften your jaw. When you feel yourself spiraling, put a hand on your chest and breathe. When you feel yourself comparing, return to your own life. When you feel yourself bracing, ask for a gentler thought. Not a perfect thought, a gentler one. And then watch how your choices shift. Watch how your body shifts. Watch how your timing shifts. Watch how life begins to feel less like a test and more like a conversation. Because life is always responding, not to your anxiety, to your alignment, not to your panic, to your presence, not to your self-punishment, to your self-respect. Now, sometimes abundance comes with an unexpected lesson. It asks you to let go of the identity that was built around struggle. For some people, struggle became proof of worth. They would say, I'm always busy, as if it meant they mattered. They would say, I'm always dealing with something, as if calm would make them invisible. So when life begins to soften, they feel uneasy. They don't know who they are without the weight. If this is you, I want you to know something. You do not need struggle to be valid. You do not need pain to be important. You do not need exhaustion to be lovable. You are allowed to be well. You are allowed to be supported. You are allowed to have a life that fits your nervous system. And when you begin to live that way, you will still grow. You will still create. You will still contribute. But you will do it from a different inner place, a place that feels like partnership, a place that feels like dignity, a place that feels like quiet confidence. And that is the kind of abundance that lasts. Because it is not just money. It is how you live. It is how you feel when you wake up. It is how you relate to your own mind. It is how your body carries your life. This is the deeper gift. Now I want to speak directly to the part of you that worries this is too simple. Yes, it is simple. But simple does not mean shallow. Simple is often the doorway. A single sentence can change a life when it becomes a consistent inner environment, not a performance, an environment. If you grew up in an environment of worry, your nervous system learned worry. If you lived for years in an environment of strain, your nervous system learned strain. Now you are creating a new environment, one that welcomes support, one that notices it, one that can receive it, one that respects it. And this is not about denying reality. It is about changing the lens through which you meet reality, so you can make better choices within it. So you can see opportunities you missed. So you can stop leaking energy into fear. So you can hold money with steadiness. So you can grow without losing your peace. Now listen closely, because the universe is very patient. It does not punish you for taking time. It does not withdraw because you had a fearful day. It does not abandon you because you doubted. The universe works with you, quietly, precisely. And if you have been in a season where things felt slow, it may have been preparation. Not because you were being ignored, because certain foundations were being built inside you. Foundations that can hold what you are asking for. Because abundance without inner stability becomes chaos. And the universe does not want chaos for you. It wants a life that can hold goodness. It wants a heart that can enjoy what arrives. It wants you to be present for your own blessings. So if this message found you today, it is not random. There is a reason you are hearing it now. Perhaps you are ready to stop proving. Perhaps you are ready to stop living as if support must be chased. Perhaps you are ready to soften the gate. Perhaps you are ready to let life meet you. You do not have to do it perfectly. You only have to begin. If today feels like an ordinary day, I want you to know, ordinary days are where life quietly changes. When you wash your hands, when you answer an email, when you make a simple choice, when you breathe instead of bracing, when you let yourself receive one small kindness without deflecting. That is how the inner world shifts. That is how abundance becomes less of a battle and more of a relationship. So take this message into the rest of your day, not as pressure, as permission. And when you notice yourself tightening, remember that you are allowed to soften. When you notice yourself pushing, remember that you are allowed to participate without punishing yourself. When you notice yourself fearing, remember that you are allowed to return to the present moment, because the present moment is where your life is, and life is where support can reach you. This is the quiet truth. You were never meant to do it all alone.